Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another webinar from A Place in the Sun as part of our month-long digital event. We've been here supplying webinars about properties and property tours in different jurisdictions, different countries, and today we're focusing again on Portugal. You may have joined us for our Portugal property masterclass on Sunday, and if you did, you will recognize Portuguese lawyer Paula Meireles. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Andy. Good afternoon, everyone.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. For a change today, we had a little bit of rain, but outside it's sunny again.
Okay. And you're down on the Algarve, is that right?
Yes, today I'm at the office based in Carvoeiro, down in the Algarve.
Okay. And what's keeping you what's keeping you busy at the moment? We're having a little bit of a chat before we came live on screen, but what sort of questions are you getting at the moment from British potential property buyers? What's interesting them, and what sort of services are they looking for from you?
Andy, I think in this moment people are really worried about getting residency, getting that status before the end of the year. So people have been contacting us to know the best way how to help them to obtain residency. Most important thing that people need to know about this is that they will need a fiscal number, the equivalent to your national insurance number. They will need a Portuguese bank account. And they will need a proof of place where to live in Portugal. And that can be done through the purchase of a property, can be done through a rental contract, and can be done also through a comodatum contract. I haven't been exploring too much about this on our webinars, but I think people must be aware of this other possibility.
Okay, so just to cover some ground that we went over on Sunday briefly then, the easiest way to get residency before the end of the year, the three things that need to be in place are the fiscal identity number, a bank account, and an address, and you need to be living at that address, and that needs to be either a house that you've purchased or a formal rental agreement.
Correct.
And that could still potentially get you residency. There is still a short window if you are ready to move very quickly, I guess, to do that before the end of the year.
Yes, Andy, that's still possible. People need to open that bank account as soon as. That's the most important thing, to do it. Open that bank account as soon as. Make sure you have 1,500 in that bank account, and if you manage to have 3 bank statements for the last 3 months before the end of the year, we will help people to make them residents in Portugal.
Okay, so there is still a window. If you have questions today for Paula, then please click the Q&A icon on the screen and send me over your questions, and I will put them directly to Paula. But we're going to explore this subject a bit more because there is such a lot of interest around it. So 3 monthly statements, 1,500 euros in the account to set it up. Any more regular monthly income payments to prove proof of income?
Not necessarily, Andy. With these requirements are enough to fulfill what is required to obtain residency.
Okay, and can these elements, which of these elements, the 3 elements, can be done remotely given the travel restrictions?
Andy, I've already said this on the last webinar. I think that it's possible to open a bank account, an internet bank account. It needs to be with a Portuguese bank. If people can do remotely or directly in London, it's possible. It needs only to be with a Portuguese bank. The account needs to be open with a Portuguese bank.
And as for getting the fiscal identity, can that be done remotely?
That can be done remotely, and for that we just need a copy, a true copy of the people's passport, driving license as a proof of address, and with those we can draw a power of attorney for me to obtain fiscal numbers for the people remotely.
Okay, and somebody is unlikely to go and buy a house remotely. I mean, it does happen, but not that common. But somebody could, I guess, set up a rental agreement and then get themselves out here to that address quite promptly.
Yes, everything can be done remotely. The rental agreement also can be signed remotely, but the residency itself, the person needs to be here physically. That's another question that people have been putting to me. If I could represent them by power of attorney. No, people need to be here physically to attend to the town hall, to sign the forms in front of the administrative person and get the residency next day.
Okay, so plenty of ways to get the ball rolling now, but at some point you have to get out there, show that you're living there, and then start the application for residency. And there is, technically, you're meant to have been living there 3 months before you apply. Is that correct? But they're not that strict about checking how long you've actually been there.
Correct, Andy, correct.
Okay.
Don't check.
Okay, and then what was the new element, the different way of obtaining residency that you referred to? This is something we've not covered before, is it?
No, we haven't. Andy, normally I used to do comodatum contracts for my clients that buy properties through companies. Then the company will allow this person to live in the property with the obligation of paying utilities, water, electricity, internet bills, and living in the house for free. So we have been helping clients to do something similar with, of course, people that made themselves available to do these kinds of contracts. And we have been helping people to, this is another way. If the person doesn't find the house during their stay in Portugal, because even if it's a rented accommodation, you need to feel it comfortable. It needs to be the right property. And so if people haven't found it, we also have been helping people with the comodatum contract. Few people already managed to obtain residency this way.
And just explain that again. How does it work? Sorry, you froze for a moment at the start of that explanation.
Okay. There's a person who wants to rent but hasn't found the place to rent. And there's a person who doesn't mind to sign with this person a rental accommodation. And it's not interested on giving on renting, but it's happy to give it in comodatum. So meaning that this person is allowed to stay in the house only with the obligation of paying water, electricity, and gas, the utilities. We arrange these two people to meet, and they celebrate this contract in between these two parties. And this way is another way, a possible way to obtain the residency before you actually rent out or buy the property.
Okay, but you don't then need to go and live with that person. It's simply paying some utilities and other stuff.
No, if you would like, you don't, it's like a rental property. You would go in and out like your own property, but of course not living with the person.
Not living with the person, okay. And then thinking about next year, and I know there's a lot of unknowns, but do you currently deal with non-EU nationals applying for residency in Portugal? And if so, what does that process currently look like?
Andy, yes, I deal mainly with foreigners. I will dare to say that 90% of the clients of this office are foreigners, and of course that are other nationals, not only UE nationals. These people, they really need a visa to come into Portugal, and it can be through an investment visa, which is what we hear very common as golden visa. or they can come with a visa to work or a visa to study. So there are several ways to obtain long authorization of living in Portugal for long periods. And yes, we do help people doing this. We are very used, it's part of the services that we carry out very frequently in this office.
And just briefly, the golden visa, just explain what that is for the benefit of our audience.
Golden visa, it's a way of obtaining residency in Portugal and circulating freely in the Schengen space. And this can be obtained by an investment, via investment in Portugal. It can be by buying a property, by forming a company and creating at least 10 jobs for Portuguese people. It can be by investing on art or culture. So there are several ways of people to make their option, even by transferring funds to a Portuguese bank account, of a certain amount of funds into a Portuguese bank account and leaving that money there. It's also a possibility. So there are several ways to apply for the golden visa, not only by buying the property. There are other channels that will allow people to require this visa.
And the first option you mentioned there about buying a property, is that just, can it be as simple as buying a domestic property and moving there, or are there more restrictions attached to it?
No, it can be a property, a domestic property, or the investment, straightforward investment of 500,000. There are other values that can be analyzed, but let's speak in general. It's an investment of €500,000, which can be in one property or in several properties, and people can still rent those properties and have an income from those properties. So they can also generate income of the properties that will help you to grant, to obtain the golden visa.
And do you think these are the avenues that will be open to British buyers next year then, or will there be additional routes, or is it still unclear?
It's not really yet legislated, and I want to believe there will be other routes, but at least these are the ones that we know that they exist for third countries, but I want to believe there will be other routes too.
Okay. And we're getting some questions in that. So specifically from Beverly Fisher, is there a cost associated with applying for a golden visa, or is it the fees that you would charge as a lawyer to help somebody do it?
No, not only my fees, also the government fees, and they are quite expensive. Each golden visa for the first year costs more than €5,000, a little bit more than €5,000.
To apply, that's the application fee.
That's the application fee. First, the fee for the analysis of the process around 500, 550 euros, and then when the visa is granted is 5,000 something. I can see here on the office, but yes, it's over 5,000 euros.
Right. I guess the clue is in the title. If you're buying or applying for something called golden, you can expect it to be rather expensive.
Correct.
We have questions in about residency and, well, a twofold question. One about applying for with a doctor, and also about UK driving licenses and the validity of a UK driving license. Let's start with healthcare and the current healthcare situation. If I were to arrive before the end of the year and get residency, what would be my status then with regard to Portuguese healthcare?
Andy, if you would manage to register yourself and obtain residency before the end of the year, you can serve exactly the same rights that I have in this moment of government health care coverage, which, let me tell you that I dare to say that they are really, really good. Our healthcare system is very good. And for that, you just need to bring the right forms from the UK, and we also help, is included on our services. We also help the clients to register themselves at the local healthcare center, small healthcare center, and they will have exactly the same rights I have. So healthcare is tendentially free. I can get a doctor's appointment for €5, and medicines are tendentially free. The government pays a big percentage of the price of the medicines. More, if you have any long-term disease, you will receive them for free, as diabetic, heart disease. I have a problem in my blood, which also gives me all the medicines that I need to take. They are for free.
And does one need to be paying into the tax system or the national insurance equivalent in Portugal to access this for free, or is that just for free?
No, because you already contributed to your system in the UK. So that's the reason you will receive here the same rights you have in the UK.
Okay. And for people arriving potentially next year and concerns about healthcare, we don't know whether there will be a reciprocal agreement around healthcare or not. But what do private healthcare fees look like in Portugal in general?
Andy, it depends on the policies that you want to have, the coverage that you want to have. For you to have an idea, I have one very good one, which I pay around €60 per month. And in 2017, I needed to have a surgery. I paid €250 for the whole thing, the surgery, staying in the private hospital and everything. I paid €250. But if I wouldn't have paid, if I didn't have that insurance, I would have to pay only for the surgery €10,000. So it depends on the coverage that you want to have. My sister and my mother both have another kind of insurance, which both pay €20. Of course, when I go to do analysis on the private, I pay €20–30 for a lot of analysis, and for the same analysis, they will pay 200, 250. So it really depends on the coverage that the person wants to have. I always recommend, if possible, to pay a little bit more, but then you are relaxed because you can make your choice if you want to go to the private system or to the public system.
Okay. And just to be clear, that operation would have been available for free on the National Health Service, or not, or you just have to wait longer potentially?
Yes, that would be the case. The doctors, I went to a doctor's appointment and they immediately submitted me to treatment for 3 months. And after those 3 months, they said, Paula, nothing has improved on your health, so we really need to go for surgery. And 8 days after, I was being operated. In the national system, maybe I would have to queue for a few months before I would have access to the surgery.
Okay. And then British driving licenses. I know you've had a few questions about this from people that you're working with at the moment, British clients. We have one in now about the validity of a British driving license and whether you'd need to take a local driving test, and issues around bringing your car from the UK to Portugal.
Driving licenses, we just need to go to the authority, which is IMTT, and registered with this authority your British driving license. You are not submitted to any test. It's just for them to register with the Portuguese authorities. It's not a difficult process. We also help clients with that. And by the way, we do not charge for normal residency. We do not charge for helping people with driving licenses or with medical services or with the normal residency. We do not charge. So we help people doing this. I consider that is part of when people relocate, they hire our services, and I think it's part of the package, let's say so. In relation to cars matriculation, that is something that people are also very worried about. And let me tell that people are allowed to bring one car in each name without any duty, customer services duties, without any have to pay any taxation. And for that, you need to bring with you, make sure that you possess the car is registered in your name 6 months before you move to Portugal. The car needs to be registered at least 6 months before in your name. You need to bring proof of living in the UK as your bank statements, your utility bills, because they will be part of the process of legalization of the car. And with the documents of the car, when you arrive to Portugal, we can start the process. You need to cancel at the British Embassy in Lisbon your residency. And some clients didn't understood very well what we were requesting, and they were telling us, Paula, we contacted the embassy and they say nothing is needed to do to become a Portuguese resident. And I say, yes, that is true. But to bring your car without paying customer fees, you really need to cancel your residency back in the UK. And this only can be done at the embassy. So it's under appointment. But of course, we help clients to do that also.
Steve Atkinson specifically asks if he's in that situation and he moves to Portugal, how long does he have before he needs to change the registration plates from the foreign plates to, I guess, a Portuguese registration? Is that a requirement?
Yes, the requirement in this up to date used to be 1 year since the moment that the car enters in Portugal and the person registers as a resident. From that moment, we have one year to do the legalization of the car. But I always advise to do all in one go. The moment you become resident in Portugal should be the moment when you start all the paperwork.
And Lawrence Thomas asks, do you know what the situation is with an Australian driving license?
I might not know precisely on an Australian driving licenses, but there is a list of countries which Portugal recognizes the driving licenses. Make sure that any driving license that you bring into Portugal, it's valid, under validation. That's very, very important. At least has more than 6 months of validity. So that's very important to change your driving license. But this person can contact me directly and we will find out if the Australian driving licenses, it's directly transferred and accepted in a Portuguese system.
Okay, thank you, Paula. We like to play this game when we have Paula on a webinar, is try and ask her a question that she can't answer directly in front of the cameras, but she's always terribly helpful and offers to look for people off camera. So Lawrence, if you want to get in touch, and I will show you how you can do that slightly later on, Paula is always very happy to help. Neil Fletcher is asking a question referencing what we were talking about earlier on the golden visa. Can a golden visa be obtained by buying, for example, a property of 250,000 and putting 250,000 of cash into a Portuguese bank account?
No. The transference of funds is 1 million euros to a Portuguese bank account. So capital transference is something different. the investment on property. I would say that if this person has that kind of money and doesn't want to invest the whole amount, so if this person invests in less developed areas of our country, that we also can help people with that, just to tell them exactly which areas are available. They can make a lower investment. Not necessarily, when we speak about the 500,000, is the straightforward, is the common and without no restrictions. But then if you go down to less populated areas, it's possible to do with the lower investments, but I would say the lower would be on the range of 280,000.
Okay, and for moving cash just to sit in a bank, that's a higher amount. That's 1 million.
Yes, that's an higher amount.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And a comment, I think, no more from Stephen Atkinson, but it's timely and up a sight. Thank you, Stephen, saying that he's found the British Embassy said if you have trouble applying for residency, they are happy to help. Is your experience with the embassy a happy one in Lisbon? Paula, do you have much to do with the British Embassy there?
No. What we help is clients to book their appointment, but they are really helpful. This is what I have. The feedback is that they are really nice people and very helpful. Of course, you have it's under appointment, so you have to be proactive on scheduling your appointments because they do what they can. But yes, the feedback is really, really good.
Okay. And of course, we're talking a lot about residency, but many people buy a home in Portugal as a holiday home and don't plan to be there permanently. A number of questions in, one from Bill O'Brien and another one from Anthony. I know, Bill, you've been on a few webinars before. Nice to see you again. What's the restriction around 180 days out of 360? Paula, in terms of how long one can spend in the country without having to become a resident status?
Andy, without having to apply for residency is 180 days, but you can spend them from January to June, or you can spend a few weeks in January, then a few weeks in June or March or December, so it's up to the person. When will we have the conflict is when you spend 183 days. Then you should become a tax resident in this country. And theirs is when you're obliged really to obtain the residency.
And is that that's then in a calendar year?
That's in a calendar year, yes.
So as long as you keep yourself below that limit, then you're absolutely fine.
Yes, you're not obliged to have residence in this country. No, and cancel anything in the UK. You can move back and forwards as many times as you want.
Okay. And Anthony is asking for clarification on that. Do you think that will be the same after the transition period, so next year?
Andy, that's what, for example, my Canadian clients can enjoy it. They have a 90 days visa plus 90. So here we are again, 180 days. US citizens the same. They are allowed to stay here for 180 days without having other requirements, special requirements.
Okay. And some very specific questions coming in, one from Nancy Chan and from others. I think the best would be for you to speak to them off camera, but looking at would a €400 investment on the Silver Coast work? Do you think that would be deemed a development area?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Okay. Let's just show people how they can get in touch with you. Do you want to give out your email address first, Paula? Is that something that you're happy to do on camera, or should I just direct them to your page on our website?
If you don't mind, I think it's easier if you direct them.
Okay, let's do that. So as part of this month-long digital event, you have already been to these pages because that is where you registered for our webinar. If you go along to Meet Our Exhibitor section and click on Portugal, that will bring you to our Portuguese section, and you click on Paula Meireles, lawyer. And on here, you have the information about Paula, a video that Paula's made for this event, and the services that Paula offers, and the ability there to book a meeting with her. So if you went into next week, you can click on one of these, put in your name and email, click that, and book a meeting. That would be a Zoom meeting. So once you do that, it will send an email to you and an email to Paula. And if you'd like a Zoom meeting for Paula, that is how you do. If you just want to drop her a message, then at the bottom of the page, there's a message box there, and you can send her a message through. What I wanted to do now is just look at some of these other areas. We talked on Sunday a lot about property services that you offer, the conveyancing process, commercial law and family law. Paula, I think you told me that you helped organize somebody's wedding. Is that right?
Yes, it is true. We have married a lot of happy couples. Yes, people need to bring their documents from the UK, duly stamped and with the stamp of apostille, your birth certificate, the marriage certificate, if you divorce, your divorce certificate, duly stamped. We will do the translation here in the office, and we will schedule the appointment with the Portuguese civil register. Yes,
yeah.
The translation is correct. And yes, we have been helping people marrying here in the Algarve. Normally, I'm one of the witnesses.
You're one of the witnesses. Okay. Do you make the cake?
We order cakes. I could do, Andy.
And what about things like, well, you mentioned divorce. Tell us a little bit about involvement in that, and also prenuptial agreements. Do you get involved in that sort of thing?
Yes, we do all those things. So prenuptial agreement is made behind the notary. We could organize everything for the clients. In Portugal, we have different ways of being married than you have in the UK. If we do corporate law, we look into the way you are married. That doesn't regulate your assets. So in Portugal would be equivalent to separate assets, meaning whatever I buy, it's mine. If I get married, it doesn't belong to my spouse, only to me. We can buy separately. If we do no prenuptial agreement, then everything that we possess after marriage will belong automatically to both. Or we can have another prenuptial agreement, which is joint assets, which is the way that Dutch people normally, we look when we do corporate law again, they are married, meaning that everything that I possess since the day I born, after I married, it's going to belong to both. And if I divorce, I will have to also give half of those assets away. So we organize that behind the notary. I go with the client and organize all that process. So basically, the client only needs to tell us what do they want, tell us which day they're going to be here, and we are here in the office waiting for them. We displace to the notary with the client, and I do the notary does the reading, I do the translation, and the people sign. So that's also something that can be organized in Portugal. If you want to marry here, you don't need to have that organized in the UK. It can be organized here before getting married.
And if I was a UK citizen but had a holiday home in Portugal and I was doing a prenuptial agreement, would I do that just in the UK, or would I need to do that in Portugal as well?
If you want to marry it in Portugal, I would advise you to have it done here also. Okay.
And I know you also advise, seeing as we're going through deaths and marriages and that sort of stuff, you also advise on wills and always making a will if you have an asset in Portugal, always making a Portuguese will, whether you're a resident or not, I guess.
Yes, that's a very big concern of the clients. Everyone wants to do a will when they buy in Portugal. I always say to people, this is not mandatory. Some lawyers will tell you this is mandatory, you have to have a will. No, this is not mandatory, this is recommendable. Because unfortunately, if something happens, the probate process will be carried out in a much easier way. Andy, I have always this in my mind. I had a client that came to see me. He bought a property, and 7 or 8 years after, he came to me and said, Paula, I want to do a will. And I said, okay, we will deal with that later. You don't need to worry with that at the moment. And the client looked so well, so healthy. And he went to the UK. He was really sick at the time, and I didn't spot it. And his probate process made me ashamed of myself. I took more than 3 years to complete that process. So this is what I tell to people. If people have a will in place in Portugal, if everything goes well and the person brings from the UK all the necessary paperwork, and I have everything in place, with 3 or 4 months, I can get probate done. Exception made to this period of COVID. COVID, unfortunately, stopped several processes that we had ongoing. But exception made to that, 3 to 4 months, we have a process completed. If there is not a will in place, this case particularly took me 3 years before I could complete it.
Okay. And making a will itself, is that a fairly straightforward process? Once you've decided what you want to do with the assets after you're gone, I guess it's fairly easy to do.
Yes, it is. You tell us exactly how do you want to get it split. We prepare the will in English, send to the client. The client approves when, of course, approves when it corresponds exactly to what they were expecting. When that is completed, we translate that will into Portuguese, and next time the client comes to Portugal, we go with the client to the notary to sign the will. Normally, people name me as the will guardian, and for that reason, I cannot be present at the notary when the signing of the will. But I always make sure that my colleague Philip, that works with me here in the office, goes, giving the support that I would be giving to the client. Plus 2 witnesses that also the office arranged to go with the clients to the notary. Okay.
Quite a specific question here from Lawrence Thomas about his wife's maiden name. He's heard that in Spain it's best to keep bank accounts in a woman's maiden name after marriage. They're moving to Portugal. He's concerned about changing her maiden name to a new married name, whether it will confuse the application. Her bank statements are all in her maiden name. Is that a potential complication, Paula?
No complication. Inclusively, Andy, I have clients that when they came to buy, they already were married, but for some reason they didn't change the passport, so we had to buy in the maiden name. But with the time, what we do is to update at different authorities the name of the person, or we do nothing, and when it comes to sell, that also happened, then we do what we call an instrument of names. We say that this person used, for example, my name, Paula Marina da Costa Meireles, that also was known as Paula Marina da Costa Meireles Marques da Fonseca. So both names that I'm known. This is also made in front of the notary with 2 witnesses, which our office also organizes to help the process to be quicker and to avoid people getting stuck with having to bring documents from the UK with the maiden name and with the married name, and that would be more costly to the client. So to avoid those things, we do this instrument of names, and we sort out anything that could be conflicting there.
Okay, somebody here, I think, with one name, but possibly two nationalities, Teresa Araujo, is a British citizen, but also Brazilian. How do you think she should apply for residency, as a British person or as a Brazilian?
For me, it depends. If she wants to do it now in this precise moment, I would advise her to buy in British, under the British nationality, and apply for residency under the British nationality would be much easier. But if doesn't happen now, then she can make the option by doing it on the British or Brazilian passport. So it's going to be the same.
Okay, and yeah, so that's some of the other services that you do that we haven't touched on before. I know you do commercial law as well, but most of, is it fair to say the majority of your time is spent with property purchases and conveyancing on behalf of non-Portuguese buyers?
Yes, Andy, that would be fair. Since 2002, I came to the Algarve and I started working in conveyancing. I'm a barrister myself, so I was doing court cases and conveyancing, I would dare to say, until 2010, probably, since I've never been to court. If I have been, it's 1 or 2 times. So yes, majority of the time I'm focused on the business side of the office. And yes, it's conveyancing, it's forming companies, and all around commercial law is where I develop my professional activity.
So do some of your clients then form a company to buy the property?
If it a requirement, yes, we have clients that want to form a company before they buy the property. Wasn't exactly that what I was trying to express, Andy, was that people also want to come to Portugal and want to have a life here and want to have companies, and I was more speaking about those types of things. But yes, we also form companies for people to buy properties.
We went through the conveyancing process in some detail on Sunday as part of the Portugal Property Masterclass, and that is now all up as a recording on our website at placeinthesundigital.co.uk. You can go there onto the webinar page, and down at the bottom are all the recordings. So at the top of the page are the upcoming webinars, and then once the webinars have taken place, they move to the bottom of the page as a recording. So you can go on there and hear Paula talking in some detail about the conveyancing process, which actually includes, Paula, you displacing yourself to look at local documentation with regards to properties, I believe.
Yes, Andy. In Portugal, the informatics system is very well developed, and me sitting on my desk, I have access to all the registered properties in Portugal. But Andy, that for me, it's not enough. I really displace. For you to have an idea, I have a client that saw me in a webinar, and around 3 weeks ago, he hired our services to represent him on a purchase of a property nearby in the area of Tavira. The moment the client started describing me the property, immediately I spotted that there would be something not straightforward with that property. So I send an email to the town hall to schedule, because now it's under appointment. The visits are under appointment. And made some questions, because the processes are not available, and the people are not available to speak with us at this moment. So 1 week went through, another week went through, and the client was really anxious, and agents were putting pressure on the client. The client raised up the price of that property, and I didn't have an answer, and I was really frustrated myself, because I was seeing that the person wanted so much that property. And this Tuesday, I managed to go and do my legal searches, and I was right, Andy. And if I didn't have this place to that town hall, I could have committed a very big error. So it's very important for me that client could have been buying an illegal property or a property with illegal parts, not completely illegal, but with illegal parts. So the only way for me to find that is not sitting on my desk. I really need to displace, I really need to go to the town hall, go through the existing project of the property, looking into the legalities of that property and to the drawings. I don't know anything about engineering and I don't look into those, but I look to the legalities, I look to the authorizations that were given, and I look to the drawings to make sure that no alterations to the property were made. I also go to the tax authorities. In this moment, I don't go. I used to, but I don't go. I get that information confirmed, reconfirmed through internet to make sure that there are no liabilities over the property, liabilities or outstanding debts that could be claimed against that property. We also go to the land registry office and go through the existing documents of the property to make sure there's nothing that can be claimed against that property. So this certainty, Andy, I just can get if I really displace to these offices and not just by sitting in my desk and doing the analysis of the documentations. So yes, I do displace. Doesn't matter where the client is buying. If they are buying in Madeira, I go to Madeira. If they are buying in the Silver Coast, I go to the Silver Coast. If they are buying in the north, I go to the north.
Okay, and we did cover this on Sunday, but for Stephen Hayes' benefit, he's asking about a deposit and potentially losing a deposit if you change your mind. Just remind us of that process, because we talked about a reservation fee, we talked about a deposit, and then we talked about the balance payment, didn't we?
Okay, and that would be the deposit. The reservation fee should be refunded 100%. It's not binding. It's just a gesture of goodwill. But when it comes to the deposit, if you, after you sign the contract is signed against the payment of the deposit. And once you are signed, you sign the contract, you pay the deposit, is binding. In that moment, if you change your mind, you will lose the deposit. If the vendors breaches contract, they will be obliged to refund you in double. Andy, I never had a client losing the deposit, never had a client receiving in double. Because I will never allow the client to sign a contract if he's not 100% sure that he wants to move forward. Sometimes people are waiting for mortgages and they ask me, Paula, why don't we sign the contract subject to more mortgage approval? I say, don't do that. Once the money is the other side, it's going to be trouble to bring it back. So let's wait for the mortgage to be approved and then we sign the contract. I know that people sometimes are very anxious. They want to move forward with things. They want to see things done, but rushing is against perfection. So I don't advise people to sign anything unless they are certain. If I'm representing the vendor, my client will never sign a contract before I have seen and I know we can meet all the requirements that are down in that contract. Otherwise, we have to refund in double.
And typically for a deposit, what sort of percentage would it be? What are we talking about?
Andy, we can expect something in between 10 to 30% of the purchase price. That depends on the vendor. When he puts the property on the market, he will decide how much he wants to receive. But typically, I would say the 10%.
Okay. We have a question in from Lisa Elford asking about a swimming pool. I don't know whether this is a live situation, but she's saying, can an illegally built swimming pool be legalized retrospectively through, I guess, through a planning application?
Again, Andy, each case needs to be analyzed in particular. Swimming pools might be legal depending on which area they are located. The property that I was just speaking about in the area of Tavira, it has an illegal swimming pool. In this particular case, we could never get it legal because the square meters allowed to build in that area were already completed. So it was extra of what was allowed in those cases, depending where this property is located. Imagine that the property is located in agricultural reserve. We are only allowed to have up to 300 square meters of footprint implantation of the building. And when I say the building, I say the building, the terraces, and the swimming pool. So it really depends. Each case needs to be analyzed. But yes, we also help clients to legalize their swimming pools. When people are buying houses that have an illegal swimming pool, that is part of my legal searches, finding out if we can or not legalize the swimming pool. And on the contract, we establish that the owner must legalize the swimming pool. If it's not possible to be done until completion, we will do a retention of the price on our client's account. We will hold a certain amount, which normally is 10,000 euros, to oblige the vendor to legalize the swimming pool. Otherwise, we will use that money to legalize on behalf of our clients.
Thank you, Paula. And a question in about people flying into Portugal now and restrictions on people arriving and quarantine rules. I don't know how up to speed you are on these. We have somebody asking about US citizens arriving in Portugal. Is there any restriction on citizens of certain countries arriving in Portugal at the moment?
Andy, that one I'm not on that.
Okay.
Sorry, I do apologize.
No, that's something, I'm sure that's something that could be Googled anyway and checked elsewhere. We've also got several questions in about pension schemes and non-habitual residency schemes, which I think people are probably better taking up with another exhibitor, Blevins Franks.
Yes.
Blevins Franks, yeah, they're specialists in helping people manage their assets and for relocation. If you're planning to take residency in Portugal, they advise on worldwide wealth management, I guess, and the non-habitual tax residency scheme. We had Matthew Christman from Blevins Franks on the webinars as part of the Property Masterclass for Portugal on Sunday. And again, that recording is on the website. And Blevins Franks can be contacted via the Meet Our Exhibitors page, Blevins Franks under the Portugal section. You've all had a message as well in the chat area from my colleague Katrina, who's given you Paula's contact details on that page. And we looked earlier about how you can interact with Paula and book a meeting or send her a message. So thank you, Paula. It's always good to have this sort of interaction. I know we all feel a little bit frustrated at the moment by the lack of travel opportunities. You like to travel frequently, not only within Portugal, but you get over to the UK a lot, don't you?
I miss that, Andy. That's part of my ADN. I love to be in the UK. Even if it's for 4 or 5 days or 3 or 4 days, I miss that, Andy.
Well, we normally have you at our exhibitions. You normally have a stand at our exhibitions. We would have been at the Birmingham event this last weekend. So let's hope we can get back to doing live exhibitions. I mean, this format works quite well and we can deal with people's questions, and it's a new development, and we're enjoying doing these webinars, but it would also be nice for you to be able to sit down with people face to face and talk through with them about their property buying plans for Portugal, I'm sure.
I'm a person, I like people, so I like people. And for me, it's important to be with them. I like the eye contact. It's fabulous. And it's so rewarding when I'm at the exhibition, and few weeks, sometimes it's months after, somebody walks into the office and I'm good with faces. And I know that I've been with them at the exhibition, so that is so rewarding. Yes, I have that need, but this has worked under the circumstances. That worked very well, and I'm very thankful for that, Andy. To you and to your team.
It's great to be able to answer people's questions directly like that, and there are a lot of questions out there at the moment, particularly with the encroaching deadline for residency under the current regulations. And let's hope that the new regulations are clarified for us all sometime rather soon. Thank you for your time, Paula. Thank you everybody for attending.
Thank you to all. Bye. Thank you.
Bye from me and bye from Paula.
Bye.